Welcome to DKM episode 46. Right now, our co-host Kenny's having more PC issues. This time it's his motherboard, so he won't be joining us this week. It's a shame. Him being a PC nerd and a tech geek, he's having all these issues when it comes to his own PC. But again, we'll be missing him. It's kind of hectic with the schedule as well, so it's a shame. But here we are, just
he'll be in our thoughts and prayers
again, right? I think he's moving to AMD Radeon now. So I mean, a lot of people who got fed up with Intel just swapped over, and once they did swap over, they've never had a bad experience with AMD.
I'm really excited to finally switch over to Ryzen. My fucking i7, that poor son of a bitch, it was meant to be put out of pasture years ago. But you know me, I'm the kind of guy that works with something until it eventually either gets completely outdated or it just completely breaks down. So,
well,
hopefully by December I'll switch over to Ryzen.
For computers? You mean like philosophy?
Just in general and everything. Like a new smartwatch came out by TicWatch that I was thinking about getting. It's like the TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra, which is just like a slightly better variant of the TicWatch Pro 3. Which I really dig, but my thing is I have a budget. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to spend more than $200 on a smartwatch. So I have a smartwatch right now. I have the TicWatch S2, and it's starting to show a little bit of its age because, you know, smartwatches don't have like the longest lasting batteries ever. Eventually they start, I don't know what's the terminology, but basically when you charge something so many times that it doesn't hold as well of a charge as it used to.
You degrade it.
Yeah, it degrades essentially. So, you know, my S2 is starting to get to that age right now, so I basically always have it off unless I manually tap the screen to save as much on the battery life. But that could be because I'm also using it more often to track my fitness. So maybe that's probably why it's using up the battery a lot more than it used to. Because back then I used to turn off all that shit off. All I cared about was that it just told my notifications and the time.
By fitness, you mean the pedometer? To count your steps?
Like the pedometer, the heart rate monitor, the O2 gauge, everything like that. Like you can manually turn all that stuff off. And, you know, back then I didn't care about it, so I just turned it off. But now that I'm trying my best to getting back into shape and stuff, I've been, you know, keeping track of my exercises and things like that. So, yeah, it basically, and it doesn't help either, this watch is fairly like 2 years old now. So it is starting to show a little bit of his age. So, like I said, back then I used to have the tilt-awake, but I just turned that off completely. Now, the only way to turn on the screen is if I manually tap it or push the button on the side just to save as much battery life as possible. Because back then, before I turned all that stuff on, I think my battery life was like, because I normally wear it when I go out or when I go to work, right? Because I don't like wearing a watch when I'm at home. I think that's just more uncomfortable than it needs to. And when I'm not at work, I just always leave it in the charger. And before I used to turn all that settings and stuff like that, my watch would last about like 70% when I got home from an 8-hour shift. Assuming if I'm not like using the watch like a lot. Like again, like I'm not gonna do a lot of things on the watch. I just only use it for fitness tracking and notifications checking and, you know, obviously checking the fucking time.
Right.
But going back to my philosophy, I'm the kind of guy that's like, I am the one who doesn't do a single upgrade because there's a new version of something. I like to wait until the thing I'm using is completely outdated, so then later when I eventually upgrade, it could be the third or, you know, the second or third generation after my piece of equipment, and then I feel like I see the gains much higher. You know what I'm saying? Because at that point you're getting this thing called diminishing returns, where if you upgrade every time when something new comes out, it's not going to be that mind-blowing, you know?
It also depends on if whatever you're upgrading to, if whatever service or provider that is giving you this thing, if you are allowed to trade in your old thing to get some of that money back.
Oh, that's true. Like I upgraded from my Galaxy S9 Plus, and then later I went from the S9 to the S21 Plus. So I skipped a step there. Like a good example would be like my 970. I went from a 970, I skipped the 1000 series GPUs, and then later I went to the 2080. So that was a big jump because not only was it a better graphics card, but it also was a resolution jump to me, because when I got that graphics card, I also upgraded to 1440p, so I could visually see the difference at that point. So that's me. I like to see the biggest number of gains, and I'd rather save my money and just be like, okay, if this thing still works for me for what I need it now, I'll just keep rocking it until it either dies off or I absolutely need the upgrade, which, judging by the recent experience of my Battlefield 2042 beta, which, to be fair, though, Battlefield games, I don't know, ever since the Ryzen chips came out, like, my i7 just can't keep up. It is always at 100% utilization. It runs like fucking garbage, and I expected that from Battlefield 2042. I appreciated they let me try out the beta just to confirm my theory. But yeah, if I'm ever going to play Battlefield games again, I definitely need to upgrade to Ryzen or a better high core count processor.
When it comes to watches or smartwatches, I've never seen the actual use for them, and I kind of see it like it's kind of foolish seeing people respond to a phone call with their watch and putting their watch to their ears, and I'm like, that's kind of like,
Yeah, that's corny. I agree. I think that, you're not fucking Knight Rider. It doesn't look cool. It looks really stupid.
right. And as well as the what's this thing? The only thing I can ever see like the actual use for is maybe a pedometer, and also what's this word called? Like, I don't know the actual like scientific term, but something to detect your heartbeat or to measure your heartbeat.
Well, there's like an O2 gauge, and then there's like a heartbeat monitor.
Well, right, but the heartbeat itself, like, all I care about is that heartbeat monitor, because when it comes to the gym, one thing you want to do is instead of taking rest periods and taking them long enough to where your heartbeat goes down, you want to keep that heart rate up and constantly. That's the best way to be the most efficient with your workout. Also with your, what's this thing called? Also with when it comes to results, if you're trying to burn fat, if you're trying to gain muscle, if you're trying to gain strength as well, you can see an improvement. However, there are these bands that you can buy that can do the exact same thing, because it's a pedometer. It also measures your heart rate, and it's meant for fitness, and it costs a fraction of the price, and you just connect it through Bluetooth, via Bluetooth, and with an app, and there you go, you have your thing. So I'd rather invest into that than over a smartwatch. The only thing I can see, I guess, when it comes to like actually like a smartwatch can actually like be beneficial is, in at least in my expertise, if I'm working on something or I'm fixing something and I got my hands all greasy and I have my watch on me for whatever freaking reason, and I get a text, it'll show up on the screen. But a lot of people had issues with, how easy the screen gets scratched and shattered. So it's not something that I want to invest into. I'm not sure if you're happy with your investment with your
with my watch?
Yeah.
I mean, my story with smartwatches, the reason why I got into smartwatches was actually when I started working at a call center, right? And when you're working at this call center, they don't want you to have your phone with you because, you're dealing with people's social security numbers and credit cards and things like that. So they don't want people with a phone there in the floor, right? But I some people, what they do is they put their phone in their lockers. I like to keep my phone in my pocket, and I'm the kind of dude, if I feel a vibration on my phone, because I'm the kind of guy that personalizes my notifications, where it's just like, if it's something important like a text or like a response or something that I really need to check on, it gives me more of a higher importance of letting me know, right? So if I feel my phone shake and I can't check it because I'm on the floor, that kind of puts me on edge, and that gets me a little bit annoyed. So I had a coworker of mine who was nice enough to sell me his old Motorola 360, because it was like, this is when like smartwatches were starting to come out and things like that. This is after the Pebble and things like that. So thankfully he sold it to me for $60, and that thing lasted me for like a year. It was cool as shit though, but it definitely was like an early smartwatch where that battery life was so bad at one point that it would die off at like 50%. Like, it would just, like, even probably earlier than that. So I would barely get, like, maybe if I'm lucky, like 6 hours, assuming if I barely touched the thing. But yeah, I had that for the job, essentially, because after I left that job and I was able to just use my phone everywhere, I just kind of stopped caring about it, because it was like, I'm just going to walk around with a fucking Pebble in my arm that I didn't even care about. But as far as why I got this watch, the TicWatch S2, it was because I was starting to go to the gym, and I'm the kind of guy that, like, when I work out, I like to not have anything in my pockets because I don't want my pants to fall or anything. So
You don't tie it?
I put on... No, I do, but, if you're holding keys, your phone, and that shit weighs you down, especially if you're, like, on the treadmill or you're lifting weights and shit, I don't want to worry about that kind of crap.
Oh, I just put my phone, like, on the floor when I'm using the bed.
I would do that. I get you, but what I do is I just walk around with a bag around me, like a very small, like, sling bag,
works.
and I just put all my shit there, and I just put it on the floor, so that way it's like much more presentable. And if God forbid you put an all black phone on a black foam floor, and you trying to pull, it's gonna be a fucking mission. And God forbid you drop the weight on it.
The only thing I take to the gym is my phone and my car keys. Everything else I'll leave in my car.
Right, right. So I got the TicWatch S2 because it was a good way for me to track my fitness. Like I would tell it like, okay, I'm gonna do this workout. Okay, track that, pause, do it. And I just like to keep track of my whenever I work out or when I'm doing one of my walks. I like to like keep track and be like, okay, I did this many steps. I walked around these amount of miles. Blah 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 blah. And that kind of stuff I like to do. So I bought the TicWatch S2 for that purpose, and I still use it for that purpose now. Like right now, whenever I go like do my walks and stuff, all I carry is my phone, which is on a rest strap around my arm, and then I just carry my watch with me, and it does everything I need. But yeah, I just like having a watch because it's just nice that I don't have to pull out my phone every time I gotta check the time or I gotta read a notification. Like, oh, I got a notification, cool, read it, and then I go on my merry way. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna get the new TicWatch Ultra because like from what I can understand, it's an extra like you could get like the pro model, the three like the basic pro model for three like for 250 if it goes on sale, and this one's like 300. I don't know if I'm willing to spend like more than $200 on a smartwatch in particular.
When it comes to you using the treadmill or just lifting weights, do you listen to anything?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, I do listen to music. So I like for example, nothing bothers me more if I'm like in a workout or something and I really don't like the song that they put on the playlist. Like I like to be able to just like skip songs without having to pull out my phone. I could just be like, all right, skip song, boom.
I tend to I honestly don't care what song is there. I just want to like block out like outside noise, I guess, and playing my own music or just listening to a podcast, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
It just helps. So like it doesn't have to match like the mood, right? So I could just play jazz. It'll be just fine. I just want something to block out everything so I could just concentrate on my counting and everything else. So when it comes to working out, I wanted to ask you a question with regards to the treadmill. Isn't there like a place you can put your phone on when you're in on the treadmill at your gym?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to the gym right now. I usually just do like the cycling in my house,
Okay.
because we have an indoor
Got it.
bike. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I put my phone on the little thing right there, and I watch like YouTube videos. I usually watch documentaries when I'm on the tread. I mean, on the bike. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I'm just talking about back when I used to go to the gym. I used to like carry a bag with me when I'm working out with my cousin. I
Okay.
would put it on the floor, and that's just how I like to work out. I like to be loose. I don't like to be bagged down or have anything that could be weighing down my pants. You know.
Right. That makes sense. I I
So
normally just wear gym clothes like all the time, at least gym shorts, and
mhm.
I usually get specifically gym shorts that I can like be confident in the string itself and the band itself, the elastic band that goes around your waist. That once I tied it,
Yeah.
it's a good amount of weight. Also, granted, I know with some people they have issues with belt, like they with pants overall, because some men need to wear belts because they don't have a butt that can hold up their pants, you know, up enough.
Some are born with the Hank Hill ass. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
you.
so it slides off. So like I was granted with a butt that doesn't have that issue, so I'll be fine not wearing any belts. The thing is that I carry a lot of stuff in my pockets in my day to day, my everyday thing, and that's why I'm very picky with the gym shorts I use because I just like wearing it because it's comfortable. And also, since we're living in Florida, it gets hot, man.
Really hot. Yeah, yeah. Florida is one of those states that it's completely justifiable to walk everywhere with shorts.
Even during the winter, because
Yeah.
like even when it's cold, like you can expect that the afternoon is going to be hot anyways. So when it comes to just doing that, the only thing I will say some gym shorts kind of suck with is pockets. Their pockets tend to be like really really shallow.
Small.
It's not too deep. So either way,
Yeah. So
when it comes to fitness and when it comes to what gear you use, I feel like you ever seen those armbands that you can put your phone to, like you can just like slide in your
yeah, I
phone.
have one of those.
I was
Yeah, I
interested
have
in
one of those.
getting one, but I don't know how I feel about having weight on one arm, you know.
I mean, I use it for when I'm walking because, like I said, I like to carry as little as possible with me. What I do is that I walk around with an armband, and I have my phone with me, and I have my watch, and that alone that doubles as my fucking ID, that doubles as my way to get home and things like that. Because I need to have my phone with me. Because that's another thing though. Because with smartwatches, you have like two variants. You have like the Bluetooth one, and then you have the one with the LTE, where you actually have to pay money to get a cellular plan on the watch. I think that's a little bit excessive for me because I can't think of a scenario, but I do know people who do fit in that category where it's like, I when I used to work at AT&T, I had my supervisor, he would put his phone in the drawer and lock it, and he would like go the entire day at his job with nothing but his Apple Watch, and that's what he would answer phone calls because you could connect your Bluetooth headphones with that.
Yeah.
And some people say that like, oh, well, it's better to just get like a cellular plan for your watch, so it doubles as a phone, and you don't have to carry your phone with you. But I can't think of in a situation where it's like, I could pay $10 a month, or I could pay like $12 to get an armband that I could just carry my phone with me. The armband I wear, it's fine. It's not I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable, but you do feel it a little bit. I definitely would only wear when I'm doing my walks, because that's what I think it's the best use for it, because if I'm going to the gym, I'm not going to put my phone there. I'm going to put my phone in my bag, and it's going to be on the floor next to me.
Right. I think when it comes to those armbands, I've used them for ID, to have my ID on me, because usually, at least with my school, there was lanyards, and then there was those retractable little pieces that you can put on your waist. It's on a string that rolls back and out, that you can just have it on your waist or anywhere on you, and those things can get caught on anything. So people have these little armbands for their ID, and it just sits there and doesn't really get caught. My only concern is just that area gets super sweaty and whatnot. So like, I can only imagine with the weight, it's more annoying. But like, I know people used to use them a lot with like old school iPod and iPod touches, when they weighed a whole lot less than your typical phone nowadays. So that was the benefit back then, at least. But now, not so much. I don't know. It probably bothered me too much. But then again, it doesn't bother me having a phone when I'm doing cardio in my pocket. At least, not so much.
I get you. Yeah, I understand. But so aside for that fun little topic of watches and going to the gym, I think we should talk about what's been going on lately. Marcos, how do you feel about the recent announcement about the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack?
So, I think when it comes to the Nintendo Switch Online plan, a lot of people were holding their breaths back in 2018.
Well, first, I think we should talk about what exactly is the expansion.
Right.
So, for those who don't know, do you want me to talk about it, or you want to do
You can cover it.
Okay. So, as we know, Nintendo unfortunately started doing the paywall system, just like how Sony and Microsoft are doing, where they're just starting to charge you money for online features that should not be charged in the first place, especially with the fact that Nintendo started this later. They used to provide free online, and then later, all of a sudden, they just said, all right, now it's $20 a year. But here's the thing about the $20 a year. What the benefits you got was, obviously being able to play online, getting NES, and then eventually we got Super Nintendo games included for the service, which I thought was a little bit better. I think it kind of lessened the wound a little bit, because don't get me wrong, I like the NES, but I'm not gonna say that it's my system of choice to go back to.
NES, it's also included.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The SNES.
Oh, okay, because it's both. It's both NES and SNES.
Yeah, no, I'd rather go back to the Super Nintendo than the NES any day of the week. Like, it's better than the Atari. I could say that. Like, I can't get into Atari games anymore. I'm sorry for you classic fucking Atari fans out there. I think the shit's a little too dated for me. Anyways, and we also got cloud saves, and we got the also lovable phone app that to this day I have yet to ever use, because who the fuck wants to use a goddamn phone app when you're more than like... Yeah, when you more than likely have fucking Discord right next to you. I don't know about you, man, but I like to say my gamer words on a Discord server. But, that's just my take. So, Nintendo eventually announced earlier in a Direct that they said they are finally adding N64 and Sega Genesis games to the Nintendo Switch Online service. Unfortunately, though, there was a caveat that they said there will be pricing differences. Now, I want to remind everyone that the price for the Nintendo Switch Online service, assuming you're just one single lonely fucking individual, was $20 a year. Yeah. And that's always been the Achilles argument for everybody whenever we bring this up. It's like, look, man, it's $20 a year. It's less than $50 than what Sony or Microsoft are charging for their particular subscription service. Like, yeah, it's not as full of features and things like that, but at the same time, though, if you have a Switch, you more than likely have $20 to drop, which I still don't agree with, but that was like the main thing. So when Nintendo said that they are going to start charging more, I was a little bit concerned about that, because I was like, okay, how much is a little bit more? The fact that they weren't giving that price immediately during the Direct got me really concerned. Fast forward to a recent Animal Crossing Direct, which I thought that was really weird, because don't get me wrong, I like Animal Crossing, but I think it's safe to say that my villagers think I'm dead at this point. I haven't touched Animal Crossing in a while, so I particularly wasn't giving a shit about this Animal Crossing Direct. Not saying anything against the Animal Crossing fans. I know you guys are really happy you finally got that froggy chair you guys have been memeing about for years now, and I'm glad Like, yeah, I'm happy for you.
Even
I really
Nintendo
am.
did
But,
a poll on YouTube and says, "Hey, are you excited for whatever's happening?" And they had 4 options, like what to expect, and then everyone was just memeing with the froggy chair option. It's so funny.
yeah, and I'm glad. I'm happy for the Animal Crossing fans out there. But going back to Animal Crossing, so in the middle of this like direct where they were talking about like DLC for additional content, and it's fine. I don't know, maybe I never got really deep into the Animal Crossing content. I never thought Animal Crossing was very lackluster in content, so I didn't think it needed DLC. But whatever. They finally, for some reason, decided to talk about the Nintendo Switch Online service, and that's definitely the talk of the town, at least for the general Nintendo Switch fan base, where they're just like, okay, this is like the bigger thing we're talking about. Animal Crossing fans were already content on buying the DLC at day one, right? So Nintendo has said that Nintendo 64 and Genesis games are going to be added to the Switch later this month in October, but at the caveat that the price is a separate package altogether. I want to stress that because I've seen this thing lately that people are saying that Nintendo is increasing the price. No, what they're doing is that they're offering you a more expensive option. You can still keep the $20 a year subscription service if you do not give a fuck about the Animal Crossing DLC, which, by the way, is being included with the expansion pack, or don't give a shit about the N64 games or the Sega Genesis games. You could just stick to the $20. I just want to say that on record because I'm not defending Nintendo. I'm just letting you know because I keep seeing this trend where people say like Nintendo price hiked it. No, they didn't. They're offering you a separate pricing tier. Not a good tier, but a separate tier altogether. It's like Xbox Live Gold and then Game Pass Ultimate. Yeah, you could pay more for Game Pass Ultimate, but you get more features out of it, right?
Yeah.
So, Nintendo has revealed that the price for the Nintendo Switch Online service per year for individual is now $50, going from $20. And yeah, now we have this awkward moment where now we're going to have to do the natural competition where it's like, okay, if you're charging $50 for our online services, now we have to compete it with the other plans, other companies that are offering a similar priced online subscription service like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live Gold. And that's like the big Achilles heel of the whole situation is that like, yeah, it's cool. You're adding in 64 games and Genesis games and God knows how. Yeah, here's a better question. How many of these games are we going to get per month? How many of them are going to get drip fed? Like, yeah, we're going to get Majora's Mask, Banjo-Kazooie, and Paper Mario. That makes me excited. But at the same time, though, when are these games coming out? How often are these games going to come out? Are all these game launches that are going to be added to the subscription service, are they all going to be bangers? Are they all going to be fucking NES games that you happen to have in the backlog that you barely paid any money to get on the fucking subscription service? I mean, like, I can't think of a time where people were legitimately excited for an NES or Super Nintendo game being added, aside from like Donkey Kong Country Trilogy. That's it. Every time whenever a new NES or Super Nintendo game gets added to the NSO service, it's usually games no one gives a fuck about or ever heard about. And it's like, what the fuck is Nintendo doing? Like, why don't you put Earthbound there? Why don't you put Super Mario RPG there? Why don't you put Chrono Trigger there? I mean, I could exclude like Chrono Trigger and maybe Super Mario RPG because maybe that's a Square Enix thing, but why not Earthbound? You own Earthbound. Why not put Earthbound on your platform? You guys already make it difficult enough to get Earthbound as it is. Why not make this an incentive,
Right.
So going back with the N64 thing, like that's a big question where people are just like, damn, dude, like, when are we getting more N64 games? When are we going to get more Genesis games? Do you have a roadmap in mind? Do we know when are these games going to be added? I know you're going to add Majora's Mask and this and that, but when is it going to be added? That's the main question. And I think that a lot of people right now are going to be doing a lot of soul searching and a lot of questioning. I mean, thankfully, I'm blessed to be in a family plan with a lot of people. And I always tell this to people, if you're going to be in a subscription service, try to get like-minded motherfuckers like you and save some goddamn money, because subscription services, yeah, they're $10 a month. But then when you're subscribed to 50 of them, it kind of adds up after a while,
So when it comes to the actual Nintendo service for their online subscription, obviously from the get-go, people saw the back in I think it was September of 2018, there was announced like, hey, we're going to do, or even from its inception, the Nintendo Switch, which you covered, had free online service. And then after sometimes they said, hey, we're going to keep this for, I think it was like a year later, they said, hey, we're going to keep this for free.
Yeah.
But there will be a subscription service. Then in September of 2018, and I think they finally released the information, and I think it went live in October, when it came to the subscription plans. And we saw that you mentioned $20 for the individual subscription. Everyone was like, oh, well, this is okay, what are they offering? And well, it was very subpar what they were offering. Obviously, the no game chat was the thing that really pissed off a lot of people. It's like, what is this nonsense? The cloud saving wasn't really par whatsoever. There weren't a lot of features in this, and they added the Super Nintendo and the NES catalog later in it. Like, the online didn't offer much. It basically forced you, if you were really into online gaming with regards to the Switch with its exclusive games that do support online, that you needed to get this in order to continue. So $20, where you're like, dang, I guess now I'm forced to pay $20 a year. Or what some people did is, even if people did a lot the family plan, and if it's just you and another person, you guys are saving money in contrast to just getting the individual pack, because the family plan, which holds up to 8 people, is $35 a year. So just 2 people getting it, you're able to save money. So the moment the online service just went live, I think I bought the family plan immediately, and I started adding people as time went on, because they started getting Switches and started to play online, and it was $35 a month, and you can divide up to 8 people, and you'll be able to save a whole bunch of money from that. However, when it comes to this new expansion pass, when you look at the increase of price and you compare it to what they're offering you, it's basically like a whole deja vu when it comes to what they offered back in 2018. It's literally not much. And to add on to what you're talking about with regards to like the N64 and Sega Genesis, like what are they adding, when are they going to add it, how much are they going to add? If we go back to the Wii's to the Wii's virtual console, that virtual console was packed with games, and
At launch. That's crazy.
And they even launched N64 Smash, which I don't know if they're going to do for this version of the the virtual consoles for the N64, because I think Nintendo as a whole wants to separate itself from the Smash community, and they just want to like just
that's so weird though.
Games
that's so fucking
just
weird.
for money. So the virtual console, the Wii, was phenomenal. The amount of games that there were, the amount of content that there was. Sure, you had to buy each game individually, but it wasn't like at a ludicrous price. It was fairly cheap, relatively cheap, I should say. But it was nowhere near compared to what it cost when it was first released in the 90s. It wasn't the same. So
You know what? Do you mind if I add on to that discussion? I've been seeing this argument lately with some people. They'll say that, like, yeah, the subscription service is pretty expensive. But to be fair, though, most of these games, if you try to buy them legitimately for 50, like, let's just say in a hypothetical example, you could try to get Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Ocarina of Time, because I'm just looking at the list right now. I've been seeing this argument lately where people saying, like, well, it's technically cheaper than buying these games used in the market, right?
Right.
Here's the thing about that, right? And I saw this mentioned by Cameron from FU Game Crew. It's so aggravating because I think I didn't get into the virtual console purchasing thing at the time, because back then I still owned all those old systems, so I didn't see the purpose of buying them again on the Wii. It's so sad, like, seeing people who spend a lot of fucking time and money to buy all these virtual console games through the Wii and Wii U, and then all of a sudden you come to the Switch and none of those purchases transfer over, and now you have to pay for a subscription service to get a bunch of these games. Now, granted, I'm okay with that because I like Game Pass. I don't have to worry about buying a game anymore because it's fucking included with Game Pass, right? But that kind of sucks, though, because I bought a Steam game from 2010 and I can still play it in 2021, right? And that's just so aggravating for all those people who like spent all their time and money getting all those virtual console games, and now they have to just only rent them again on the Switch. Not own them, rent them.
That is true. The thing is, with regards to this whole emulation and piracy arguments, is emulation piracy? If it's a game, it's honestly way too expensive to achieve on your own, and the actual producer or manufacturer of the game won't produce the game again. It's annoying. Honestly, just do whatever. You're not hurting Nintendo if you emulate old school games, because they're just not going to re-release it. But here's the thing, though. Back to what I was saying with regards to the N64 Virtual Console, you can still buy these games virtually on your Wii, and for cheap. I think.
Well,
What was it?
not anymore.
I forgot what.
The services are offline
Right,
now.
but back then when it was relevant.
Oh yeah. But at launch, yeah, I know. Going back to what you're saying, yeah, at launch it was pretty crazy with all the stuff that they offered at launch, and they only added more over time with fucking. Let's see, what else did they add? I know they added Neo Geo games. I know they added. I think they added Turbo. Yeah, they added TurboGrafx games at one fucking point.
So the when it comes to that, it is still interesting that Nintendo did it right once, and now they're going back with regards to 2018, Nintendo Service Online and Nintendo Switch Online, and now even to today's Nintendo Switch Online. You're seeing this complete, like, what is happening. I think Nintendo knows that they can milk this market, much like many other companies can milk a certain demographic, because people are still going to play it. So obviously, like you said, you could still use your old subscription plan, or the one that most people have, all people have right now, which is the $20 for the individual, $35 for family. However, what's ironic here is a lot of people are still disappointed in it. The only people who see a big benefit to it is just people who want to play old school games on the go, and that's really it. Which, honestly, if you happen to get a Steam Deck, you can do the same with emulation, but that's a pretty penny. But regardless of that fact, if you're not into Animal
Well, if you do it with
Crossing,
the Steam Deck, you could.
What?
If you do it with the Steam Deck, theoretically, you could play all these games on the Steam Deck and not have to wait for Nintendo to drip feed them.
Even you can even play Metroid Dread, which already got emulated on PC.
Which, we'll get back to that later.
So,
I'll get back.
with regards to the actual product, honestly, it's just not a lot of things to go into. If you're somewhat satisfied with your service as it is right now, and getting all these old school games doesn't really just tickle your fancy when it comes to like upgrading. Like, Ocarina of Time is a very, very large game, and you can do so much to it. How this is going to affect also with the speedrunning community, I don't know, because I do know when it came to
Mario 64 on the Switch.
No, the Mario All-Star 3D All-Stars, you can use the GameCube
Which, by the way,
of that game to speedrun, but it's used differently.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that, because the speedrun community has their very hard, strong ways. If you're going to speedrun a game, more than likely you're playing it on the original hardware on a CRT. I don't think it... I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm ingrained in the speedrunning community, but I would never worry about that. I was just going to say... That brings up my point of contention. That's why when I saw the N64 games being added, my first reaction was, holy shit, they added Mario 64. So essentially, when Nintendo was basically telling you, like, hey, make sure you buy our 35th anniversary Mario 3D All-Star collection, because it'll go away. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You better not regret it, asshole. Yeah, that's what everybody was saying. Like, yep, they're gonna release it physically and digitally, and then Nintendo will eventually add these games to the Nintendo Switch Online service, because it just wouldn't make sense if they didn't. And lo and behold, look what they're doing. And I don't know if Nintendo is ever going to eventually add GameCube games, or I don't know, Wii type. I don't know. I don't think so either, because holy shit, at that point they're probably going to charge you $100 a year. But that's definitely a point of contention. That's why I made that tweet when this whole announcement was going on. I was like, man, for $50, you could buy for $50. You could buy a 1 terabyte hard drive and probably download the entire library of all these systems in one hard drive. And it's so funny. I remember the tweet that they showed off. The first thing someone brought up was like, well, you could download RetroArch on Steam. And I literally checked the RetroArch Steam page right now. And literally, you could download RetroArch and all the emulators off of the Steam page right now. And like, damn, that's very interesting. But here's the thing about with emulation, right? And I know that.
Let me finish what I was saying, because I'm still not done with the whole plan thing that I wanted to get across.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, with regards to what they offer, it's really up to you if you want to do it. I currently am the owner of a family plan, and I had to ask everyone in the family plan if they were okay with it. Most people said yes, so I might have to do it. The thing is, when it comes, what's ironic here is it's a whole 2.5 times increase for the individual 12-year plan for a single user, right? You went from $20 to $50. That's a 2.5 times increase. With regards to the family plan from $35 to $80, it's 2.29 increase, which I guess if they did it in actual 2.5 times, I think people would have been a lot more crazy with the response, because I think that would have come out to like almost $90. All I know is that with regards to all this nonsense with what they're adding, the only thing that's really valuable with regards to like this actual this expansion pass is the free inclusion, right, in quotation, the inclusion of the Animal Crossing's New Horizons DLC, which comes out the 5th of November. The thing is, a lot of people still play that game, but only those who are really, really into that game will be interested in either getting the expansion pass or just staying with their old subscription plan and just getting the DLC by itself, because it's just not worth the headache. So a lot of people obviously are disappointed in this this announcement. Then again, people are just going to keep giving money to Nintendo because it's Nintendo, and it is what it is. People are just going to be like, I might as well play Ocarina of Time, which granted it is a very large game, and so is Mario 64, but Nintendo just keeps going back and forth and just doing its own thing, and people just keep following along, even though it pisses them off. So
no, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, which I thought was really funny, was that, like, let's say in a hypothetical situation, like, yeah, okay, the Animal Crossing DLC on its own is pretty expensive. I think it's like $35 if my memory was right. What I find it really fucking funny, I saw this article where they said that Nintendo has confirmed that if you stop paying for the online subscription service, the DLC is removed from your game.
Yeah.
So all I can think about is that moment from SpongeBob where Krabs is just like, no more watching free TV, cheapsteak, and then he like presses a button on the remote and the programming just goes back into the television from the guy's eye.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I thought that was that was really funny. But yeah, I guess we could subject into the questionable subject of emulation. Now, I'm going to just get this out of the way right now. Whether or not you think of piracy and things like that, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the idea of emulation. I am incredibly fascinated by it, because emulation isn't just a free way to play old games. That's the thing that people understand. It's a lot of development, it's a lot of work, it's about learning the system's hardware and things like that, you know. And it's also a great way for people to play games that weren't available in their country or aren't available in their market. For example, look at all the, you know, fucking Super Nintendo games that never got released here in the States that people wanted to play, like Clock Tower and BS Zelda, and, you know, a lot of things. So I think emulation does have a purpose, or not only for development, but it also for a historical presence, because after all, without emulation, a lot of these games would be forever gone and never talked about again. Like I brought up earlier, BS Zelda. Do you know what BS Zelda is, Marcos? Do you know anything about that? Well, BS Zelda, I'm surprised you don't know. You didn't know that Nintendo had a satellite service back in Japan in the 90s where they was able to digitally send a signal over to the Super Nintendo in order to get games and studio sound quality music? You didn't know about that, Marcos? Oh, well, shit. I'm not that fucking surprised. Well, basically, there was a Zelda, well, 3 Zelda games, essentially. One was essentially a remake of the original Zelda game for the Super Nintendo, but you played as, like, your own avatar, and that game was only available through the BS, I think, the Satellaview, there you go, that's what it's called, the Satellaview services, and, of course, it shut down, right? But Nintendo doesn't seem like they bothered to like re-release the game or store it into some special edition or blah 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 blah. It took the fans to find a copy of the cartridge that had the code in it, because remember, it gets wiped after a while, right? And they figured out how to reverse engineer it to make it into an accessible ROM for people to play. And you could, if my memory is right, it's been years since I checked, but you could still play BS Zelda on your Super Nintendo emulator because of emulation. And I think that that's why emulation is a necessary, I wouldn't say a necessary evil, but something that needs to exist, because you can't depend on these companies to properly protect and what's the word I want to use? Preserve their things. Like I've read all these stories about how like Square Enix and Konami during the PlayStation era, after they're done with the game, they just wipe the source code. They just don't bother keeping the assets at that point, because, you know, back then they didn't give a shit about it. You know, a product is done and the deed is done.
Or when
a
company goes bankrupt and they don't really
then it goes
Yeah.
away. Exactly. So that's why like emulation is a thing, and that's why it bothers me when people say they're like, "Oh, I'm not a big fan of emulation." Like, what the fuck is wrong with emulation at that point? You want to learn the hardware, you want to be able to recreate said hardware, but the question is a piracy. And here's the thing, though: you could legally be able to download your ROMs not from a website, but from your own accessible piece of sanctioned Nintendo equipment. There was finally a project released by a guy who was able to do a complete 100% HD retexture of the N64 Majora's Mask, and it looks fucking fantastic. And he provided guides on how to get the ROM out of your cartridge or your Wii U or Wii, for example. So at least it gives you a legal way to do it. Obviously, though, Nintendo has shut down websites like Emu Paradise. Rest in peace, Emu Paradise. But the fact they never shut down Be As Zelda's website always kind of interests me. The fact that they never went out of their way to do that. Or hell, look at examples like Mother 3. Mother 3 never got released here in the States, and that game has a very well-known fan translation that to this day people are still playing, and Nintendo never shut them down, right? Hopefully the Nintendo ninjas don't come in and like shut them down, and then later my head is on a stick. But anyways, my point is exactly that emulation is definitely a thing we need to have because of preservation and also being accessible to a lot of people. And that's where everybody's getting really mad about this whole Nintendo Switch Online service, is that now we're no longer preserving our games. Now we're just renting them from a server at this point. And you know what? While you were talking, Marcos, I went ahead and I checked the Switch Online expansion pack trailer. And yeah, the dislike bar right now is at 35K while the like bar is at 14K.
Damn.
So yeah, not a lot of people are happy.
I will say, though, when it comes to emulation, the thing is, how are you going to obtain this copy, and for what reasons are you going to use this game? Obviously, when it comes to speedrunning, a lot of people want to use what program or whatever game that everyone else is using, so their times, their recordings can be, well, properly and
consistent,
properly just maintained and properly just recorded into whatever system they use for recording time and whatnot. So when it comes to the I think recently a 1 second barrier was passed in Super Mario Bros, which is the I think it was the 90%, where I think it finally reached 4 minutes and 55 seconds, which was the next hurdle. And there's only a couple of frames that's humanly possible to save to get the perfect time that any human can achieve in that game. So how do you go by when it comes to achieving said record and by playing these games? Well, there's different options. You could play it on the original NES. That is an option. There is, I think, a Wii variant, and as well as there's proper legal games in this community that you can use, whatever mediums there are, and there's even a proper emulation for it, which is, for the most part, I think is completely legal to use. But people still find ways to get this game in order to do what they want to do. You're not going to stop anyone by just shutting down a website, because once it's out on the internet, it's out.
It's out.
And
yeah. When Nintendo shut down AM2R, it's still around. Yeah. It's still getting updates.
Right. So with regards to all that, there is no proper legal route or proper channels that are public that you could say like, hey, what about Project M or P Plus, because the company or the people who were in charge of it closed it down, in quotations. But you could still see that you can still download it. You can still download the updated or the most recent variant of the game. But either way, it's not something that Nintendo has been very user friendly with, which is why I still find it funny that Nintendo has gone out of their way to really just stick that knife into the community and just twist it around, because they don't care that you're supporting them in this way and creating community around it. They just want you to keep buying their new things. They want to say, forget the past and do the whatever is new.
Unless it's sanctioned by us, we don't want you to experience these games or these IPs or franchises or whatever, unless it's sanctioned by us, essentially.
Right. That's why I stopped playing Smash regularly, and that's why I really didn't buy the DLC pack, because I honestly stopped caring about Nintendo. And it sucks that even the big YouTubers and big like competitive players who have been in Smash's history, they basically created Smash history with N64 and Melee, and basically blowing up the community as what it, to what it is now. The only reason why Brawl had amazing sales is because the Melee community, the competitive Melee community, did really just had a bunch of love for this game, and Brawl was like a
Smash Brothers always sells like hotcakes, though. I mean, like, to be fair, Brawl was the hypest shit
well,
at
true,
the time.
because of the success of Melee and the competitive scene and how much love there was for it. It really branched it out. So once Brawl came out, everyone was expecting like to be Melee 2.0, but obviously it really wasn't, and it really like soured everyone's taste because like, dang, this game sucks. But with regards to that, like, people are, which is why I, like, going back to my point, which is why I'm saddened by these competitive Smash players who have been with the Smash community since day one, and they've made the community bigger and much more healthier, much more fun place to be in, and they are forced to keep, to continue playing Smash, even though Nintendo's doing all these nefarious anti-consumerism, anti-community building practices. Because honestly, at the end of the day, having Project M is not going to hurt anyone. And these kind of emulations, where they're mods, isn't going to help anyone. Did Nintendo ever shut down what was it? Toby Fox's mod for, what was it, Mother? No.
Earthbound. Yeah, Earthbound.
Yeah, Earthbound? No, because who cares? But because of that, Toby Fox was...
But they shut down the ROM sites, though. That's thing.
That's true. But even then, he was able to create Undertale. And it's just... they just want money, and obviously there's no way around this.
Because remember, as they say, today's modders are tomorrow's developers.
Right. And
which is true.
Yeah,
that's definitely true.
true.
Look at the guy who made Sonic Mania, one of the best Sonic games released in recent memory, until Forces came out, and that shattered anybody's expectations. But anyways,
the whole team,
that guy, like, that was like the craziest shit ever. Then Sega said, "All right, you clearly know how to make a Sonic game. Here's the budget. Here's the finances. Go make a Sonic game, because you're a guy who's modded Sonic games up to this point. Why don't you just make a Sonic game?" And look at that. We made Sonic Mania.
It's the same thing with Dragon Ball. Like, after Dragon Ball Z was done with regards to the manga, Toriyama, the mangaka who created Dragon Ball series, he was just chilling doing his own thing, and people started creating their own fan-made stories. Obviously it's not canon, but this one guy, his name is Toyotaro, he created a series called Dragon Ball AF, and it takes place after the events of Dragon Ball GT, and it went up to far as Super Saiyan 5. He designed everything, but what really stood out, Toyotaro, is how well he drew and how close he drew to how similar he drew to Toriyama's drawings. So he got hired on by Funimation, and whoever's in charge of the IP for Dragon Ball, and now he's making Dragon Ball Super. He's the one who's making the manga for it as well. So he's someone who made a fan-made comic, a fan-made manga, and now is doing the actual the series that's ongoing, that's still going on, which is right now hella fire. Like, it's amazing right now. Toyotaro, he's doing phenomenal now. He's actually learning, because prior to like the beginnings of Super, it was like it's like a lot. Like, you could tell that he's still new to this, but now where he is now, he is writing and drawing comics or manga exactly like someone who's a veteran. So I'm glad it's going for the better. But yeah, the same with Sonic Mania. It's phenomenal what someone who has a passion for this game, for this series, for this etc. whatever, just place it here, then gets hired on, and they produce a fantastic game. Well, dang, that's like a win-win here. Even people who develop current Destiny and Halo games, they grew up playing games made by Bungie. And heck, even Kenny, that's pretty sure that's Kenny's dream to work for Bungie, because Kenny loves all the Halo series. Kenny loves Destiny. So it's probably just full circle. It's coming full circle. The thing is with Nintendo, it's just, they're just toxic on purpose. They just want to be this way just to do it, because screw you. And people want to keep blaming the whole, oh, it's not the developers, it's the what do you call it? It's the company as
Publisher.
a whole. Honestly, even though Sakurai did retire from Smash now, since this was his last DLC character he was going to do overall, and sure,
which is the best DLC character.
Even after all that, more DLC characters can come out, but they'll probably be singles, and they probably won't be developed by Sakurai. The problem isn't so much Nintendo as a whole. It's usually people in the top dog, like top brasses, and Sakurai was part of the problem because this whole Smash community thing with games being shut down. Sure, you don't have to blame the developers, the actual like bottom people who develop these games, but Sakurai, I 100% agree, he was part of the problem because
from what I could understand, because the reason from what I read, and I the only thing I could think of is like a similar comparison is Square Enix, for example. Like a good example, like God forbid you make a fucking video with Utada Hikaru's music.
Oh, right.
Your ass is fucking blasted by the lawyers of Square Enix, right? Because I was watching, so I think about picking up the Kingdom Hearts games again on PC, and I remember there was a section in the HD re-releases where there's a segment called Before You Stream, where they explicitly tell their people like, hey, you could stream the game, but God forbid you leave the game on while playing music in the background. Your ass is getting blasted.
With Kingdom Hearts 3, when it was released, and you were streaming the game off of your PlayStation, like the actual, not like that you were using Twitch or anything to like mirror your screen. I'm talking about like actually streaming from your PlayStation.
From the console.
Yeah.
They're
much like with a lot of video games, online video games, where like, hey, you want to go into the account options to look at your accounts, your IP, whatever, it would stop the console from streaming, or it will block the information to to help out anyone who's streaming. But when it comes to the Kingdom Hearts 3, when you first launched the game and they started playing the song Face My Fears, and they had a little cutscene playing of what to expect, it stopped your recording. And obviously people already knew it was because of Utada Hikaru, who did all that, because like, yeah, her music slaps, but like it also will slap you with a whole bunch of legal fees because, well,
and DMCA's and shit like that. It's that's my thing. From what I can understand, it's basically because there's a bunch of old folks in Japan right now that have like their really stern way of looking at things, and they want essentially their laws that apply in Japan the same to apply here in America and the rest of the world. So that's just the thing about that, what you're saying about like who's to blame at it. Look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of old people in Japan that run these companies that are very headstrong. Like, look at Konami, for example. Fucking one guy does a news story before the whole Konami Kojima shakedown that was going on. He tells like, oh yeah, people are getting fired. They're forced to work in a different departments. They're no longer getting access to the offices. What did they do to take the video down? They claimed 5 seconds of Metal Gear Rising footage that had no audio in it. And the video got shut down. YouTube stood up and said, no, this is fair use. They put the video back up again, and the guy was hailed as a fucking freedom fighter for a whole night, essentially, all because one Japanese lawyer, which you could find in the fucking report, just said, nope, that's what we got to have a problem with. That fucking clip.
It's you literally cherry picking. You can technically DMCA, or you can basically strike a video down on YouTube if, let's just say, someone is recording something for the YouTube content. Or how about this? You are let's just say you're at a panel, right? A debate panel with someone you sort of don't like so much, and well, you and him are having, or you, that other person, are having this debate. If you wanted to be petty enough, and you can't because it's legally your right, let's just say you uploaded this your whole debate on your YouTube channel. The people who were hosting the debate put it up on your YouTube channel, and you're okay with that. However, the person that you were debating and you don't like, because they were in the video, they feel like, hey, I should upload it as well. However, you, as someone who was also in that video, you weren't asked permission to have that video posted on their channel to gain revenue and whatnot, so you can literally strike the video if you wanted to. And you can do that. It's your right. You can legally do it, and it's not a thing about fair use. It's because you are in that video and you're not really reacting to it. It's a debate. Unless you just go over it and start talking over it, saying, like, and you pause every 2 minutes saying, yeah, this is what I meant by this, and this and that, you can make that fair use.
You have to make it as transformative enough to make a compelling argument at that point that it is a transformative work.
Right, but if you just post the entire debate, you versus the person you dislike, and the person that you dislike posted the whole debate as is, the vanilla, the actual original thing, because they're debating you can strike it saying, hey, no, that's mine.
That's my content.
Because I'm in it. So some YouTubers do that just to do it because they can, right? So
I mean, like, yeah, even going back to Nintendo, there was a time where, like, you couldn't fucking record Nintendo games because Nintendo just said, unless you're sanctioned by us, you guys can't do it. And, you know, it's a slippery slope. I mean, it's just a scary, you know, draconian nightmare I could think of where, you know, God forbid you're a movie critic and you're reviewing movies. Man, that's a fucking landmine of fucking, you know, potentially getting into trouble with all these movie studios. If they don't like your review, they could just claim as like, well, you use footage of our movie and this and that. It's like, well, I need to use it for my transformative work and blah 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 blah. And yeah, it's a thing out there, man. And it's such a shame that we have to like be put in a situation where unless you have, you know, you're lawyered the fuck up to fight for your right for fair use, which it really isn't fair at this point. It becomes a shit show.
I will say with emulations, I'm counter emulations for people who like for indie games, because those are the things that I'm like, why? Because it's an indie title. You don't need to pirate it, right? And I love very creative ways that indie developers.
Wait, what does emulation to do with that though? That sounds more like a piracy issue.
Right. I'm sorry. I changed it to piracy. That's why I said piracy.
Oh, okay. I was a little confused there.
Either way, like when it comes to pirating, you know, like Metroid Dread, right? I'm not gonna lose sleep over it because you pirated a big game from a developer or a publisher and developer, I should say, who obviously is toxic in their own way, and plus they've made a bunch of money from it. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it, but on an indie developer, really, it's something that's more like, you know, I get that you can do this because you can, but like they're not like a big time.
Wait. So let me ask you this though: what if the indie developer is toxic? Would you still pirate their game?
It's not so much about toxic; it's the addition of being toxic that makes it that doesn't bother me so much. It's the one that they're big, so they're not going to lose any sleep over it, really, because like for Metroid Dread, they're gonna make their money back anyway.
Okay.
But the addition of it being them being toxic, it makes me just not care at all whatsoever. But if they're toxic and they're indie, like it's up to you. If they harmed you anyway, it's up to you to do your own thing. If you want to have your own, I guess, revenge, who cares?
Right.
I don't care. But I love these creative ways that some developers, regardless if they're big or small, they find very creative ways to find out, like, hey, if you're hacking or if you're hacking or if you pirated the game, and like with what was it with GTA, your cars randomly explode in the story mode in story mode. And there's no way around it. In The Witcher 3, a beast gets sent out to attack you, yada yada yada. So it doesn't bother me too much with that. But when it comes to emulation and the whole idea of like what can you really get out of it, listen, you can emulate whatever game you want, and just one person doing it isn't really gonna affect anything. Just doing their own thing, just like, hey, you know what I haven't played in a while? I have not played, I don't know, Hercules, right? Hercules on, well, I forgot what it was. I played
PlayStation 1.
Yeah. Let me just emulate it, or Maximo. Let me emulate that because I remember playing when I was a kid. I have a PC, and let me just do it because why not? It's not hurting the original company because, well, they're not making,
and the game is not readily available,
basically, or your copy's so scratched up that like, what's the point? So all I know is that with regards to these very strict, very power hungry sharks, when it comes to like, hey, you can't use our stuff because we're gonna hit you with a whole bunch of litigations and whatnot. I'm surprised that Japan, with its super conservative mindset and its super old school traditions, it's just like it's not hurting you like the old school Nintendo. It's not hurting you if someone streams your game. You're literally getting free advertisement. That's literally what streaming is. I'm playing a game. I'm basically at free advertising your game because I bought it. Other people don't know if they want to play it. They watch my stream. Guess what? They just start playing it. But Nintendo is just so power hungry. They're like, you know what? No, you got to be sanctioned by us. So that's why I don't care about emulations if it's like for a company like Nintendo, because they're big and they're toxic. Specifically because they're big. But like, we can even point back of a game that's years old and it only got big because a group of streamers started playing it together, and it's Among Us. And now look how big it got. Look how culturally intertwined it got with memes, with whole imposter is sus, the music and all that stuff, right? Look how big the game got. And basically the game is, if you really, really, really want to like describe it to the bare bones, it's doing chores the game until someone dies.
Yeah, and also here's the thing about the whole thing about piracy as well. As much as people want to defend these companies, say that like piracy does so much and it hurts these, these big companies so much. You know what's one of the most pirated systems of all time? The Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
You know what's one of the most sold systems of all time? The Nintendo
Yeah.
DS. Did Nintendo potentially lose money through piracy? Yeah, no shit. But is it really gonna hurt their bottom dollar? Probably not.
What's the percentage?
I'm just Yeah, exactly. And like a good example I would think of someone getting fucked over by, like, I remember reading the story about a developer because of Valve's 2-hour return policy window. This one guy, sold the game, people played it, they finished it within 2 hours, they returned it, and he lost all his money. That was fucking sucked. I didn't play the game myself, I don't know that, but that's a good example of like, hey man, like, it's a small guy here. This isn't like a big shot company here that could, take the fucking loss. You know what I'm saying?
So with regards to the DS, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up as well, being one of the titles that are like 100% like pirated or emulated consoles. Those phones that flip now, that have two screens. That's one big old screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there's a DS app that you can have basically a full DS, right? So
Nice.
people are having all of that. Like you can play your DS on your phone because the whole screen is a touchscreen, right? So what I find
Yeah, emulating DS games are weird because that's a situation where like the system is made with that hardware in
Right.
mind, and it's really weird to translate that into like a single screen.
right, but one thing I will say that I find funny, even when the DS was out, do you remember that they were selling cartridges that had like 50 DS games in one, and sometimes they were like
I
half
had
the
one
games,
in high school. I had
half the games were like
yeah,
buggy.
and I actually had a flash card. I had a TTDS back in high school. That's what my DS essentially was in high school. I played the shit out of it.
Yeah, I had one that Pokemon Pearl worked, Pokemon Diamond worked, Mario Kart DS worked, a whole bunch of DS games, but like half of the games didn't work at 100%. That's what I mean. Like, hey, I couldn't beat the last level of you know how Donkey Kong, the original Mario Bros, the original Mario or Donkey Kong game, where there's like 25M, 50M, so on and so forth. I couldn't beat 75M because the game would just crash. That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you. Yeah, some games were, especially if it was like a really big title that came out, you probably had to download a patch just to be able to pirate it properly. But yeah, no, I understand. I had a flash card when I was in high school. I played the shit out of Chrono Trigger. I caught up with the Pokemon games that way. I played Final Fantasy IV that way. Yeah, the flash card and my DS Lite that I won in an arcade was literally the best fucking combo I could have had, because I know the 3DS was out by that time, but I don't think there was any 3DS flash cards that worked well, so that's why I didn't bother with it. But yeah, I was gonna say something real quick about Metroid Dread. I've been playing it a lot lately. Holy shit, that game is really good. Like, it is really, really fucking good. 19 years well worth. There's like this big thing going on right now because, as we know, there is a Switch emulator out there. I think it's believed called Yuzo, but I didn't bother really looking into it because it's like, it's early on to the Switch's, early on with the Switch's existence. I don't think that it's possible that it's going to be a running as well, but apparently Metroid Dread was the odd man out. Apparently it was kind of like Breath of the Wild at launch, where I was able to play it through a Wii U emulator. Not granted, not the best experience ever, but eventually in 2021, playing Breath of the Wild on the PC is the best way to play it right now, because you have the unlocked frame rate and the better visual fidelity and things like that. Metroid Dread is one of those cases where the game just ran really well at launch. I had a friend of mine who played Metroid Dread from completion through the emulator, and he told me that, this game is going to be really fucking good. He still bought the game, like me. He still bought the game because he wants to support the Metroid franchise right now. And a lot of people are giving articles like Kotaku and PC Gamer a lot of shit because, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's the cycle. It's like, wacky Nintendo fan project, really expecting to blow everyone's minds. Then Nintendo finds out about it because it's a publicity thing, and then later, oh shit, look, the project gets shut down because Nintendo found out about it. It's one of those like, keep it on the underground for a good reason sort of situations. And there was even websites out there that were just straight up telling you how to use the fucking emulator to play Dread, and it's just like, goddamn, And I know there was like this argument that people are saying like, oh, but Nintendo's a big company. Metroid is a special case though, because Metroid isn't Zelda, it isn't Mario, it is a franchise and an IP that is dormant as fuck. Not as bad as F-Zero. Poor Captain Falcon is regulated only as Smash Brothers character. Metroid is a franchise that's never really had its time in the sun. You know, it's a franchise that never, ever, ever gets the units sold as much as a Zelda game or a Mario game. So that's why people were so adamant about like, hey, don't promote piracy at this point because this franchise needs more support than ever before because we're still waiting for Prime 4 and we don't know when the fuck that's coming out. And Dread is a fantastic fucking game.
But Prime 4 is confirmed though, right?
Yeah, but we don't know when the fuck it's coming out. Like, remember, the game had to restart development. Like, how the fuck is that? When the fuck is it going to come out now?
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure, but all I know is that it is one of those games that it does have less love because it's a more darker game. Even though Legend of Zelda is dark in and of its own self.
I wouldn't say it's dark. It's just less casual friendly because Metroid games are meant to be time sinks and they're meant to be, you know, they're not as casually accessible.
Maybe less
as other
child
games.
Friendly with the cars when it comes to the atmosphere and the environment.
Yeah, but that's what I fucking love about
Well,
it.
you see, even I guess it's just more of a niche thing. I guess when it comes to just
That's what I'm saying. I think it's just a niche thing. Like, I think anybody could pick up and finish a Zelda game. A Metroid game, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me you dropped Super Metroid because you just didn't know where the fuck you're going. That's why I like Dread so much. The flow is so good.
I will end with this. You know what's ironic when it comes to Legend of Zelda games? Even though like a lot of people were really upset with the Legend of Zelda the Wind Waker, how cartoony it was. Even though that may be true and how cartoony it was and how like the spirits were all like high and a lot of happiness and whatever. Even like the combat wasn't so like, wow, like this is scary. There were some parts of the game that they get dark, but regardless of that, it's still one of the Legend of Zelda games that you can say it's not as dark as the rest. But however, the ending of the game is still the darkest that there is when it comes to defeating Ganondorf. My boy Link, I guess, spoiler alert if you haven't played Wind Waker all the way through. All right, spoiler alert if you want to skip like 20 seconds. Link, Toon Link at this point, he's defeating Ganondorf in sword combat with Zelda with the light arrow, and then he spins around, jumps in the air, and sticks the Master Sword through his freaking forehead.
He downforced it.
He compared to the way every other game ends, like with Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild, in every other game, and even in Ocarina of Time.
To be fair though, in Ocarina of Time, he fucking I was about to say he stabbed that sword right through that fucking dude's skull.
But that's a pig. Right, that's a pig demon. But in the Wind Waker, how he brutally just like bam, and he just like the sword wasn't just like, oh, it's just a tip. The sword was about 60 to 70% in there, dude. It was like, yikes, that's a man. You just you did worse than behead him. You turned him into stone, literally, because the sword is just in there. And not only that, then you flooded him. Like, yikes.
Well, twice.
Yeah, well, no. At the end of the game,
time.
not only did you stab him and turn him to stone, then you like, dude, that was like pretty like.
Yeah.
That was, when I saw it as a kid, I was like, yo, that's awesome. And then looking back at it, I'm like comparing it to all because Wind Waker was my first Zelda game. But all I'm saying is,
I seriously want to know, are there still people that are still bitter at Wind Waker's art style? Like, I like my Zelda games being realistic. That's why I jerked off to the Twilight Princess trailer like 5 different times.
I'm sure it grew on people.
Yeah, of course. Fuck it. When Twilight Princess came out, everyone was like saying the same shit. Yeah, fuck that Toon shit. It's about a man's game now. It's like Lord of the Rings up in this
Complained that it
bitch.
was too dark. To tell you the truth, that it was way too like dark. Like it was too grayscale. It was too like there wasn't enough colors.
Oh, the color was definitely very blurred the fuck out, but that's just because Nintendo was looking more towards the West development of it. Basically, you could look at Twilight Princess and be like, oh yeah, that's Lord of the Rings inspired. Like really Lord of the Rings inspired. Yeah. But I think we should. You want to wrap, Marcos?
Yeah, I think this is what a great way to talk about our love for Nintendo games and our hate for Nintendo as a whole. I guess just you can still find good in the bad. I guess that's the whole thing about it. It's just I'm still probably gonna get the Nintendo Switch subscription, the upgrade only because of the people involved.
Are you gonna buy the N64 controller and the Genesis controller for $50?
I'm so glad they did that because if you can use that for N64 Smash, which I do watch it competitively, like the competitive scene, if that helps out, I'd be so happy to see it work.
I might buy the N64 one because I don't think they've ever made like a really good reproduction of an N64 controller made by other companies. The Genesis, on the other hand, dude, look, I'm gonna save you guys some time and money right now. Go on Amazon, type in Genesis controller. You'll find plenty of controllers by all these different companies are just as good, if not better, than probably what Nintendo's gonna offer for $20. Like, don't sweat it over that. I might buy the N64 controller because, like I said, N64 games, especially games like Mario, for for example, they were made with that N64 controller in mind. And I can't say ever in my time playing Mario 64 on all these different platforms that has ever felt as comfortable to play Mario 64 with an N64 controller. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I was just playing Mario 64 with the Pro controller just fine, but Mario 64 was clearly made with the N64's weird-ass three-prong controller in mind, you know?
Right.
So I might give that a try. I didn't bother getting the NES or Super Nintendo controllers because 8-bit Do made just as fine for that. But I might pick up their N64 controller just for the novelty and the fact, like, well, shit, it's a reproduction N64 controller. But, yeah, I think we should just go ahead and wrap, okay? Yeah. All right, then. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the DKM Podcast. As you guys know, you can always watch us here on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere where the streaming services. I'm sorry, I know I said in the last episode I was going to try to get this on iTunes. We're still going to work on that. I'm going to try my best to get this show available on Apple Podcasts at some point. If you haven't yet joined our Discord server, we would love to have you guys along and join our little community. So, we would like to get your feedback and see what you'd like to see us talk about in future episodes. But I think I got everything checked out. If you guys haven't yet, please subscribe. We would like to get that subscriber number up because we're about to hit 50 subs, so we're looking forward to that. And yeah, that's about it. Take care, stay safe. Until next time, see ya.